What's going on, YouTubers? This is Zen from Zen Multiverse, and I hope you're having a great day. Some of you are like, Zen, you did a whole bunch of episodes in the same clothes. That's because it's the same day. I'm doing all the recordings in one day, and I'm enjoying it. So this question for for comic book vibes comes from Vertical Shots, and his topic is about
You will never amount to anything. We shall see, brother.
Archangel, and specifically how and if his character has changed after becoming a Horseman of Death. Really great question, right? Because he has changed quite a bit. When we're thinking about Archangel, Archangel is a character named, his real name is Warren Worthington, and he is a mutant that we know from the X-Men, right? The early days of the X-Men, X-Men #1, and his mutant ability is basically he has wings, right? And those wings allow him to have flight, right? And it goes a little bit deeper than that, but at its base, it's basically he can fly, right? His skin has some kind of resistance to wind, which allowed him to fly at fast speeds, and his eyes, right, to not like tear up the whole entire time while he's flying. Now, throughout publication, Apocalypse came into contact with Warren Worthington and basically offered him a cure, right? A cure for being a mutant, right? Because you have to imagine, even though Warren Worthington was rich and he had all the wealth needed, he still was a mutant. And at that time, right, and still in the comic books, there is a lot of discrimination when it comes to mutants. For Apocalypse, he made him a Horseman of Death and then allowed him to go through the transformation of becoming the Horseman, right? And the Horseman's name was Archangel. I'm not going to edit any of that fumbling that I just did out. But basically, he, as the Horseman of Death, his mind was just basically warped in a way to only serve Apocalypse. Now, there was a time where through the process of the trials and tribulation, the X-Men were able to beat the Horseman of Death and thus being able to free Archangel. And he stayed Archangel. They weren't able to reverse it. Later down in the comic books, there was one of the most phenomenal books of all time that I really love. Archangel is the Uncanny X-Force, right? Which is a team that is basically funded by Warren Worthington, and that team is like Deadpool. It has Wolverine. It has a whole bunch of other characters that are basically go on missions that the X-Men would not go on, right? And it involves killing. And throughout that comic book, the reason why I'm going through that comic book run is because it goes into that question that you had about how he has changed. In that comic book, you see the psychological flux that comes from Warren Worthington being Apocalypse's Horseman, and also him trying to be Warren Worthington, and the two sides are literally at a flux where he is able to transform into normal Warren Worthington and also into Archangel. And there is a love interest with Psylocke, and Psylocke is the one who is able to help him, right? Remember, Psylocke is she's Betsy Braddock at the time, and she's inhabits the body of a ninja named Quanin, but her mainstay ability is telepathy, and with the telepathy, she helps Warren Worthington to kind of find balance between the two, right? At times, she isn't very successful, but at the end of the comic run, I believe he is able to find some kind of success in stabilizing the Horseman, right? Which is Archangel, and being who he is, right? And uses it for the needs that he has. Now, it's changed him in the sense that he became vindictive after he regained consciousness after becoming Archangel. The vindictive nature was, I need to go find Apocalypse, and I need to take him out because of what he did to me. Of course, right? He changed his whole entire life, right? Into becoming this Horseman of Death, because as we know, after he gained consciousness, he still was in the form of Archangel. He had the metal wings, and he had a little bit of a shifted sense of mentality, and he was more bloodthirsty. Bloodthirsty in the sense that he wasn't the billionaire, the wealthy Warren Worthington anymore. He was just like, I got to do what I got to do. That's it, right? Like anyone, if they have some kind of traumatic shift in their life, they become brand new versions of themselves, right? And the reason why I mentioned later on is because later on, the person who he was when Apocalypse first turned him into Archangel emerged, right? Purged his brain. And the reason why the purging was happening is because Apocalypse needed a new vessel. And Warren Worthington as Archangel was the perfect vessel. And that's why there was an emergence of the old Archangel that came to fruition. Not in body, but in mentality. So there was a constant flux that was happening between Archangel and Angel, right? And that's how he's changed, right? Has he been able to stabilize? Yes, he has. But still, that post-traumatic stress is still there, right? And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't talk about in comic books is how have events changed characters, right? I think DC Comics does this really well, right? Especially now they do this really well. Like, how has the stress of this event changed a person, right? Marvel Comics doesn't really talk about it too much. They just keep on going, right? But I think in Uncanny X-Force, they really stress the mentality shift when it comes to being who you used to be versus who you are now, and then the two fighting each other, right? And that's what's happening in the mindscape of Warren Worthington during that time, and Psylocke trying to really help him through that process, right? Really getting into his mind and shutting down and putting up mental blocks so that Archangel won't come back out, right? So I hope that made sense. I was kind of going all over the place right there, but anyway, with that being said,
You will never amount to anything. We shall see.
this is Untitled Multiverse saying peace, love, and prosperity. If you're enjoying my content, drop me a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll catch you all later on the next episode. And the next episode, we have a question. And please don't forget to drop those questions. Let me bring up this question. My friend, Just a Little Podcast. He has an amazing YouTube channel and a podcast as well. And his question is, you can only keep one comic book in collection. What would it be? See you next time to find out.